The opinions expressed on the Custody Queen Show are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for personal, professional legal advice. The persons discussed are fictional and not based on actual clients.
Thought it was love, had kids in between. You can count on us, we're the Custody Queens. Yeah, you can count on us, we're the Custody Queens.
Good morning, everyone. It is a great day to be alive. You know why? Sam and I are here with part 2 with our guest, Dr. Charlotte. We did not even come close to finishing her story, and we had so many more questions, and she was gracious enough to come back for a second episode. So, Sam, let's get into it.
So just to recap, if you guys have missed the last episode, we were talking about the Netflix special, The Most Hated Man on the Internet. We were also talking about how Dr. Charlotte Laws is the most fascinating person I know, but the fourth most, what is it?
Notorious party crasher in the world.
Fourth most notorious party crasher in the world. So if you missed that was on the last episode, and she spilled.
Yeah, I think Sam has a girl crush for sure right now.
For sure.
And I am absolutely fascinated as well. And I think Sam and I are both so fascinated because we are both women that refuse to look the other way. And you know, I am going to read Dr. Charlotte's book and figure out how to party crash myself because I feel like I'm an amateur, but I'm already slightly good at it, but I could really take it to the next level. And, you know, it is a good thing in life to be relentless, you know? Do not take the word no on its face. It might be not right now. It might be I don't know that you're the right fit, but, you know, we deal with a lot of issues with our clients and with our colleagues. And when someone tells me no, I take that as not right now. And whether it's something I need to work on for myself or whether it's something I need to, you know, get my client ready for. It might be when clients want to go to sole physical custody right off the bat. And you look at them and you say, no, that's not what might not be best for the children. But also, let's take it a couple steps back. And I really like Dr. Charlotte's story because she got what she needed to get, and she also spoke for so many people that couldn't speak for themselves. Men, women, you know, there were so many victims in this show. So if you haven't watched the show, go to Netflix, put in The Most Hated Man on the Internet, and you can thank Sam and I later for getting this referral out there. We'll make sure we post it on our social media. And if you forgot it or you have any questions about the three of us, make sure you send us a message on Instagram at Custody Queens or either of one of us. And Charlotte, if our audience or our fans want to reach you, they want to ask you anything, how do they follow you on social media? What's your handle?
On Twitter, it's at Charlotte Laws, just like my name. On Instagram, it's Dr. Charlotte Laws. So those are probably the best 2 places.
All right. Now, we might have a lot of our guests that are listening. They might ask you some questions. I know that I probably am going to be one of them. But, you know, we really admire what you did and, you know, what you continue to do. But you also have such an interesting life. I feel like you've lived many, many lives.
Yeah, it's been very good, very interesting.
We are going to pick up right where we left off, but for those of you who may not have caught the first show, go back, listen to it, watch it, and let's get into it, Sam.
Yeah, so the documentary, we were talking with Dr. Laws about revenge porn, and I'm going to let you give a brief recap again, if you can, of the documentary.
Yeah, the documentary is basically about my attempt to first get down my daughter's picture off of the most notorious revenge porn website, and then to help other victims, and then to get the site down entirely, and then to start pushing for legislation and get legislation passed, which we now have passed in 49 different states. And the website was the owner called it pure evil. He called himself a professional life ruiner. he used Charles Manson language. So he was the father, his followers were the children, they were all the family, and his followers would go after every victim. Their nude picture or topless picture would be posted to the website along with their name, social media link, city, and that was the cue for the followers to try to get that person fired, ruin their relationships, try to drive them to suicide, and they would be bullied. They would be, sometimes their home address would be up there, sometimes their parents' phone number. I mean, it was just horrifying. And I kind of became a suicide hotline for these victims because when I started reaching out, to date, I've talked to over 500 victims of revenge porn over the past 10 years. And 50% of the time when I was contacting these people to tell them they were on the site, they didn't even know about it. I was the first person to tell them. So it was, they were in tears. It was just heart-wrenching talking to these people. But I felt like I needed to do it because at least I had a little bit of experience. And, I had, obviously it happened to my daughter. So I, kind of knew something about the issue. And back then, no one knew anything about revenge porn. In fact, I called a bunch of attorneys back then and it was like, sorry, I don't know anything about this. It was like a new thing. So I had to kind of start investigating and just kind of learning about this website and the owner and what I could possibly do to try to get my daughter's content down and then other people's content down.
At what point did this become bigger than your daughter? At what point did you say, I'm going to go help everyone else too?
Pretty close to the beginning, to be honest. I mean, I saw this, and I've always been a cause person, and I believe that perseverance is the key to success, but what I call other-centrism, or helping others, humans and animals, is the key to happiness. And so I very quickly saw, wow, there's no law except copyright law. That was the only even remote chance of protection back then. And I saw this as a cause, and so this change, society needs to change and there need to be laws in place and all these other victims need help. And so pretty quickly I realized that. And my daughter didn't want me to continue once her picture was down because she just didn't want more attention to the fact that she had been on the site. Sure. And my husband didn't want me to keep doing it. And our whole house had been in complete turmoil. But I was determined to continue well before that because I've just always been this cause-oriented kind of person.
Well, you have really helped a lot of people, even beyond the victims, the people watching the show and wanting to be part of the bigger picture. And I can't help but think that if what your daughter went through happened in today's times, that it would have been even worse. Because with social media, Sam and I have dealt with some weird comments and you get a lot of really happy and really supportive people, but there's also the select negative people that, want to tell you they don't like your nose or they don't like the outfit you're wearing. And I have pretty thick skin and as well as Sam, but social media it's so powerful and it can be positive, but there's so much negativity and toxicity with it as well. And I just wanted to throw one little tip out there for everyone listening that has kids. I have written stipulations that exclude the children, minor children, from being allowed to use TikTok or having a phone with social media because it can be very, very toxic for young people. And, my daughter is 8 and she asks me every week for a phone. And I tell her no every week. And it's, well, so-and-so has a phone. Well, so-and-so's mom got her phone. And, my answer is always, well, I'm not their mother. But I was trying to explain to her, until you are old enough to understand the consequences of having the phone and going on Instagram and just social media in general, then we're not going to have a phone. Now, I'm not telling everyone how to parent, but I am saying that I have had many cases that have involved children that have had some pretty serious mental health issues because of shade rooms on Instagram, or kids that, they might have gone to school with someone that committed suicide because they were bullied on social media. So as much as we all love the gram and we love posting pictures and Facebook and Twitter, make sure that when you get your kids a phone that you are also educating about the consequences of social media.
And also people need to, when they see somebody being bullied on social media, they need to come to that person's defense and stand up for them and fight against the bullies. I really feel like if society would, hone in on that and say, oh, there's somebody being bullied, and then masses of people come to their defense, the bullies are just going to back off. They're going to go, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed, and they're going to leave. So I think that it's something that society should be called on to do.
I agree.
To help protect those people.
Yeah, and I think too, the internet is a scary place, but it can also be a really powerful place. And it's an avenue to continue the education for issues like this, right? So the idea of revenge porn, I hope everyone knows what that is. If you don't, you need to educate yourself more and be reposting stuff about it and tagging people in this Netflix documentary and reading up on it and coming to people's defense, because the more education you have surrounding it, the more people, I think, get to a point where they're maybe normalizing the idea that you should stand up for people instead of saying, that would never happen to me, so no big deal.
And I feel like that's, slowly changing with social media. And I think all these documentaries on Hulu and Paramount Plus and Netflix, it definitely helps the cause. I saw a few weeks ago there was a story on Instagram. I think it was, I follow People magazine or something, and it was about a preschool teacher that had almost gotten fired because she was very, very pretty, exotic looking, and very curvaceous. And some of the parents were uncomfortable with the preschool teacher's body. And you know what? I actually, after watching your show, and I don't think I actually thought about it, but I went, and you're looking at these comments, and I would say there was more positive and supportive than negative, but you have so many people that just sit behind a computer and don't think before they write something nasty. But my first thought was, we are low on teachers. If she is a good human, teaching your child good manners, good life skills, and protecting your child, what do you care, what her body looks like? It blew me away. And so I actually commented and said, you know what? If this woman is a good teacher and a kind human and protects these kids, we should not give any concern as to what she's wearing or what her body looks like.
I don't understand how people think that tearing other people down is going to somehow boost them up, but I do believe that is the mindset of the people who do this kind of thing. And certainly that website owner, that is his mindset, 100%. He really does believe that, being a misogynist and hating on everybody somehow makes him the king. And it's just not correct. I'm sure he's a shell of a person, miserable,
for sure.
Very unhappy person.
Do we know where he is now?
I think he's back living with his parents, is what I have been told.
They're probably so proud of him. Probably so proud. This is my son.
Yeah, it's up in the Sacramento area is where his parents live.
Now, you were able to help get him banned from the internet. What does that mean? Or social media? What does that mean?
Well, he had a temporary ban. So he is banned from Facebook because Facebook banned him. And he's been suspended from Twitter right now. But he wasn't a week ago. He was actually on Twitter. It's just a recent suspension.
And he kept his Twitter name?
Yeah.
He didn't change it?
No, he has a new Twitter name that he was using. So, but he is on some other social media, and I hear that it's pretty bad. I haven't been on it to check it out, but there's some other social media outlets that he's, or platforms that he's on, supposedly. And he's just making gay bashing and racist comments and sexist comments and that kind of thing is what I've been told. So I don't believe he's posting revenge porn. It is now illegal in California, so hopefully he is abiding by the law with respect to that. But he has not changed, and he did a little interview with one of his friends. He hasn't done any real interviews, but one of his friends did a podcast with him. And he said, what would you do differently? What would you, because he wanted him to actually apologize, but he will not apologize. He said, the only thing I would do differently is I would ratchet up 10 times harder. Wow. So I don't know if that means murders. I don't know what that means, but he does not have any empathy for the victims or any desire to change his ways.
It was getting pretty serious, right? He was threatening.
Oh, yeah, he makes all sorts of threats. And, he made threats against me. He actually said he was going to get a gun and come and kill me, is what he told a Village Voice reporter. Village Voice, yeah. So he was kind of out of control, and he had a God complex, which he will admit that he
Did you get an attorney about getting did you talk to an attorney about getting a restraining order for that comment?
No, I didn't. My husband's actually an attorney.
Oh, there you go.
But we didn't do that. And he, he has no money, and there's no reason to have a civil suit against him. And that's what I found about these perps who do revenge porn, who distribute these pictures, is they're very afraid of law enforcement. They don't want to go to jail, but they don't care if you sue them civilly because they have no assets. They often live at home with their parents in their parents' basement, And Hunter Moore, the guy who ran that website, I believe has about a $350,000 civil suit that was awarded for someone against him. So he has that judgment sitting there, and he has no assets to pay it, and he probably doesn't really care.
Yeah, I've learned over my life that people that are out to hurt other people, or they think that hurting someone makes them feel better, they're usually just very insecure and very unhappy human beings. And people that lift each other up, support other men, other women, teach their kids to support and love everyone regardless of any differences. Those people are good, happy people, and their kids, they learn from their behavior, as parents. Because kids learn these bad behaviors, and they watch their parents and they listen to their parents. And, my daughter had an issue at school the other day, and she felt like she was a little left out. And, I was just walking her through. It's a very, very normal issue for my daughter at 8 years old. But I also told her, there is room for everybody to shine, everybody. And we always include everyone. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job with that. My husband as well. So just talk to your kids, teach them these things, show them. Don't just talk about it, show them.
So I have a question. I have a lot of questions. But one question I have is there some piece of information about the show that didn't make the show?
Yeah, there are definitely things that didn't make it. For example, the stalker coming to my house. I was really amazed they didn't include that.
Yeah.
That's pretty important.
So yeah, there had been a guy sitting outside our house, and I had been told by a computer expert that if someone wanted to hack into my network, they would need to be near the house and to look out for unusual cars or vans on the street. And I live on a cul-de-sac, a very quiet street. No one's ever parked on the street. And my daughter saw it the first night, but she didn't tell me. And then the next night, the car was there again. And she said, "Mom, why is there a white car sitting outside? The car was there last night." And I couldn't, accuse her of paranoia because she didn't know what the computer tech had said.
Yeah.
So, and at this point, it was kind of later on in the story, and I was fed up. I was like sick of it. It was time for a mother to stalker showdown,
Right.
And I just marched out there, and I marched up to the car, and there was this young kid, probably in his 20s, like blonde curly hair, sitting there doing something in his lap. And I said, "May I help you?" And he just looks up at me. He just freaks out. He turns the car on. He zooms away. He almost hit my neighbor's wall. I mean, if he were innocent, he would have said, I'm just waiting for your neighbor. Or, my daughter was like behind me the whole time going, "Mom, what are you going to do? Mom, what are you going to do?" She was running out after me. It was really funny. So that was one thing that didn't make the story.
Yeah, and I guess get back to the ban from the internet. Couldn't he just create like new screen names? I mean, that just seems like such a slap on the wrist. How do they enforce that?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's up to the tech companies to kick him off if, I guess. I mean, at this point, because he's not banned anymore. I mean, now the judge only could ban him for a certain period of time. They can't say the rest of your life you can never be on social media. So it's expired, so now it's up to the social media companies if they want to, take him off the platform or not. So,
but the website's down forever, right? That's gone.
The website is down forever, and I mean, he could try to bring it back under a different domain because it was only the domain that was sold, not the content. So it would be illegal for him to post it, and he would get arrested again. But I suppose anything is possible with this guy. So, yeah.
And do you know how I know there was the hacker, but do you know, was it just like the luck of the draw that your daughter was targeted? Was there anything that linked them together, or was it just complete luck that the hacker targeted her?
Well, I mean, it was pretty random, but the way he did it is he hacked into he started with his own Facebook friends, and he would take over their accounts and take over their emails, and then he would reach out to their Facebook friends, so it was like the friend of a friend of a friend. And my daughter had 6 friends in common with the hacker. And he actually was from our community. He actually went to high school about a block from the house where Kayla was raised. So she didn't know him, but she knew people who knew him. And it was amazing that he was doing this to his friends, because some of his close friends contacted me after all this happened and said, you know, I got hacked, my nude pictures were online, I knew him really well, and you know, they couldn't believe he would do that to them. And then when he got caught, he admitted, yeah, I hacked you and I put the pictures up, and he acted like it was no big deal. He just wanted to plead guilty. This was back when he was looking at 42 years in prison, which was what he was originally looking at. Wow. So was the website owner. And he said, I just want to go to jail and get it over with. But they ended up getting very light sentences, and I feel the sentences were way too light.
What was his sentence?
They both got about 2.5 years in prison, but they got off early because you know how they
good behavior.
Yeah, good behavior, bring people out early. And it wasn't really like prison. It was more of like drug and alcohol rehab centers, that type of thing. I was told that one of the ones that Hunter Moore was at, that the inmates, so-called inmates, could walk up to the store by themselves, unsupervised, get food, whatever they wanted, and come back. Wow. So it was kind of more like a camp, you know, like being in summer camp or something.
Yeah, I think he got off pretty easy, and both the hackers just as responsible. And what was the relationship between Hunter and the hacker? Were they friends?
The hacker had hacked Hunter at one point, and then instead of Hunter getting angry, he said, hey, do you want to hack for me? I'll pay you. And they probably had never met in person, but they had this relationship where he was paying for photos. And it's because he wanted photos of people who would never want to be on a website like that.
Because it's the embarrassment portion.
Yeah. So, because there were people self-submitting, you know, that were like, but those were not interesting pictures of people who wanted to be there. They wanted executives. They wanted teachers. They wanted
the
nurses.
girl next door.
Right.
They wanted people who just would be horrified to be on a site like that.
Yeah, and it's not just limited to revenge porn for everyone listening. It's the bullying. It's, you know, obviously the revenge porn it's more common than I think any of us want to admit. I think Dr. Charlotte is a huge part of making that now a crime, and you should never, ever, ever do that. And, you know, you should always talk to an attorney if you are the victim of that. But it's also the bullying online that is just as bad, and that's at all ages.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things too, and part of, besides your perseverance, what made this a success is that you were reaching out to people as opposed to the other way, because it seems that a lot of times victims will feel alone, right? They are really ashamed, so they don't want to go to the police, or they get enough guts to go to the police, and the police go, well, it's your fault, and it's the victim blaming thing again. So I think the community aspect's really what ties it all in.
The reason I started doing it is because, you know, my daughter was hacked, and then she saw that one of her friends was on the site, and she called her friend, and her friend said she was hacked as well. So I thought, you know, I only know 2 people on this website, and they were both hacked. So I thought there might be a hacking scheme here. So I started doing, because I used to be a private detective also. That was another one of my jobs. And so I started, you know, reaching out to find out how they got on the site. It was like a little study. I contacted 40 people, and it was very hard to contact them because I couldn't use electronics. I was afraid the hacker could be on their email or social media.
Because they had taken over their social
everything
media.
had to be done by phone, and it was a lot of times I just had their last name, and I had the city they lived in, and I'd call people with the same last name and say, are you related to this person? Could you have them call me? It was very roundabout and very hard, but I found out that 40% of those people had been hacked. And some of the people we knew had been hacked by the same hacker. And so I was able to give that information to the FBI. And I think that really helped because they used those victims. I mean, they, you know, out of all the victims, almost all the victims that they used in the case against the hacker and Hunter Moore were my victims that I had handed over to them with phone numbers and emails and everything.
And I think at some point the FBI...
offered you a job? I'm just
there was an FBI officer on the show that was providing information as well, and I think at some point he said that Dr. Charlotte was good enough to work for the FBI and that her investigation skills were excellent. And I'm like, yeah, she pretty much did your job for you and handed it to you on a silver platter. But you know, again, for everyone listening, go back, watch the show. I think it's a really good, it's one of those shows where you want to skip to the end, find out the end, and then go back and watch it. At least, I like to know what's going to happen, feel good about watching it, but I know that there's justice at the end of it. because some of those, I watch a lot of 48 Hours and that kind of stuff, and you watch the whole show and you're like, but they never figured out.
It's not resolved.
Yes, it's not resolved. There's no justice. I was like, well, this didn't make me feel good.
Disappointing.
Yeah,
Right.
this was a feel-good show. It was about a mom that not only fought for her daughter, she fought for everyone else on the website. She was relentless. And Dr. Charlotte is a heck of a person as well. She, you go back and watch the first show because she was a bodyguard for a prostitute. She is the fourth notorious.
Most notorious party crasher in the world. Yes.
There you go. She is a author. She's an author. What were your books again, really quick?
Rebel in High Heels and Undercover Debutante are my 2 memoirs.
And those are available on Amazon. She also has a wonderful non-fictional book on Amazon that is about her grandfather.
My grandfather, called Devil in the Basement, and he was killed by a devil worshiper in 1948. So I did a story about that.
Well, after watching you on the show and the way that you articulate your words and tell stories, I definitely will be grabbing all 3. I'm going to start with the debutante one because I need to learn how to party crash on a positive note.
Here's my future.
But we are out of time. We had so much fun filming with Dr. Charlotte today, and it was definitely a show that ended with feel-good vibes. Right, Sam?
Absolutely.
And if you want to follow Dr. Charlotte, tell them again what your TikTok and Instagram are.
My Twitter is @CharlotteLaws, and my Instagram is @DrCharlotteLaws.
And thank you for correcting me. I said TikTok, but I meant Twitter.
I've never been on TikTok, unfortunately.
I'm on every now and then for hacks. Always crazy cleaning hacks. But thank you, everyone, for joining us. We loved having Dr. Charlotte on. You can follow Sam and I on Custody Queens and Custody Queens on Air, and you can visit custodyqueensonair.com for all of our past shows. And remember to call us at 1-800-419-7772. That is 1-800-419-7772. And we hope you had a wonderful Saturday, and we look forward to sitting with you next Saturday.
And remember,
let love rule.